Before you chase greatness, before you pursue wealth, before you seek peace, ask yourself this. Have you conquered yourself? Have you silenced the voice inside that cries for ease when the path demands endurance? Have you buried the laziness that whispers, maybe tomorrow, when destiny is knocking today? Because I did not come here to entertain. I did not come to make you feel good. I came to tell you the truth. The life you desire, the future you dream of, it is not built by wishful thinking. It is not achieved through shortcuts. It is not handed to the lazy, nor gifted to the unprepared. It is claimed by the disciplined. This world respects power, but the highest form of power is not what you wield over others. It is what you control within yourself. And discipline, that sacred fire, is the key. Without it, you are a prisoner of your emotions, a slave to your excuses. But with it, you become unstoppable, unshakable, untouchable, and touchable. There are many who will hear these words and smile, nod, feel inspired for a moment, then walk away unchanged. But you, the one still listening, the one whose spirit is stirring, I speak to you, not because you are perfect, but because you are ready. Ready to rise, ready to break the chains, ready to live not a small life, but a great one. And that greatness starts not tomorrow, not next year. But the moment you understand this one truth, discipline is the key. Not luck, not talent, not comfort. Discipline. So don't just hear me. Follow me through this message. Listen to every word. Let it pierce. Let it provoke. Let it awaken something deep inside you that has slept for too long. Because this is not just a speech. It is a call to transformation. And if you dare to embrace it, your life will never be the same. Discipline is the foundation that separates the dreamers from the doers. We all have dreams. We all have dreams. We all have visions. Some dream of building empires, others of changing their family's legacy, some of lifting entire nations out of darkness. But let me tell you, having a dream is not special. Everyone dreams. The question is not who dreams, it is who acts, who sacrifices, who bleeds, who endures when the fire gets hotter. And the answer is simple, the one who is disciplined. You see, the dreamer sleeps, but the doer wakes early. The dreamer wishes, but the doer works in silence. The dreamer talks about what could be, but the doer builds what must be. And the only thing that separates them is discipline. It is not about being smarter. It is not about having better connections. It is not even about talent. It is about who is willing to suffer consistently for what they believe in. Who is willing to go through the process when there are no rewards, no applause, no recognition, just pain, routine, and a silent war inside the soul. There are men and women with great visions who never rise, because they are prisoners of comfort. Their spirit is willing, but their flesh is weak. And every time the alarm clock rings, every time the opportunity knocks, every time the test comes, they fold. Why? Because they never train themselves to obey purpose. They obey feelings, and feelings lie. But discipline tells the truth. Discipline says, get up, go again, fight again. Even when the body is tired, even when the heart is heavy, even when the path is lonely. You think the great ones feel like showing up every day? You think they are never afraid? You think they don't feel the weight of the pressure? Of course they do. But the difference is, they show up anyway. They train their minds to submit to the mission. They tell their bodies, you don't decide for me. They don't negotiate with weakness. Because discipline doesn't care how you feel. It cares about who you're becoming. Every champion you admire, every leader you respect, every warrior who left a mark, they were not born ready. They became ready through discipline, not in public, but in the unseen places, when no one was watching, when no one believed in them, when quitting would have been easier. And that's the test. Will you keep building when no one is clapping? Will you keep grinding when the rewards are not immediate? Will you obey your calling even when it costs you your comfort? You see, discipline is not just about doing the hard thing once. Anyone can do that. It's about doing the hard thing again and again, until it becomes your identity, until your weakness has no say, until your old life no longer recognizes you, until your dream stops being a fantasy and becomes a reality. Because reality is only shaped by those who show up when it's hard, when it's dry, when it's lonely, and still choose to stay in the fire. And don't lie to yourself. You know when you're running. You know when you're avoiding what needs to be done. You know when you're hiding behind excuses, behind distractions, behind false hope. Deep down, you know that the life you want requires more than talk. It requires the death of your laziness, the burial of your excuses, the destruction of your comfort zone. And that funeral is not easy, but it is necessary. Let me speak clearly. If you do not embrace discipline, your dreams will bury you. They will torment you, because you will see them, feel them, taste them, but never reach them. Not because you weren't capable, but because you weren't consistent. And consistency without discipline is an illusion. It fades under pressure. Only discipline makes consistency unbreakable. So you must decide, do you want the fantasy of greatness or the reality of it? Because the reality requires early mornings, late nights, lonely seasons, and painful sacrifices. It requires facing yourself. And that's the hardest battle. Not the enemy outside, but the enemy within. The undisciplined voice that wants to take the easy way. The soft path, the path of least resistance. That voice must be silenced. Not once, but every day. You were not created to live average. You were not born to just exist. But you will not rise to your true level if you keep negotiating with weakness. If you keep choosing what feels good over what builds you. You must become dangerous to your excuses. Unforgiving to your old self. Committed to the process even when the process gives you pain instead of results. That's when you know you are on the right path. Not when it's easy, but when it requires everything from you, and you give it anyway. Because the great life is not found, it is built. And it is only built by those who have the discipline to keep going when others have stopped. There are many people who believe they are consistent, who pride themselves on showing up often, on doing the right thing when it's convenient, on repeating small actions with the hope of reaching success. But hear me clearly. Consistency without discipline is like a fire without fuel. It may burn for a moment, it may warm for a season, but eventually it dies out. Because without discipline, your consistency has no root. It's weak, it's emotional. It depends on mood, on weather, on people, on applause. And anything that depends on the external will never last. Consistency that is not grounded in discipline is a performance, not a conviction. It's easy to show up when you feel motivated. It's easy to act strong when the road is smooth. But what happens when the pain arrives? What happens when no one sees your effort, when failure stares you in the face, when you're betrayed, rejected, exhausted? That's when the difference becomes clear. The consistent man who has no discipline will retreat. He will stop. He will say, I tried, and walk away. But the one whose consistency is born from discipline, he does not stop, because he doesn't move by emotion. He moves by principle. He knows why he started, and he refuses to give up until the mission is complete. You want to know why people burn out? Why they start strong and finish weak? Because they mistook routine for resilience. They believed that doing something often would make them unbreakable. But routine without discipline is just repetition. It builds no strength. It develops no character. It's like training in a room full of mirrors but never stepping into battle. You can't fake discipline. So when the war comes, when life tests your roots, the weak are exposed. I've seen men who went to the gym every day, but still quit when life hit hard. I've seen people who read books every night, but still couldn't handle pressure. Because they were consistent in habits, but not disciplined in spirit. They checked the box, but they never surrendered to the process. They never allowed discipline to transform their identity. So they stayed the same inside, even while doing more outside. Discipline is the soul of true consistency. Without it, you are building your life on sand. Discipline keeps your steps firm when everything else around you shakes. It reminds you that showing up isn't enough. You must grow up. You must stretch. You must embrace discomfort. And this is where most people fail. They want the results of discipline, but not the pain of discipline. They want the glory of consistency, but not the grind it demands. They want to win, but they don't want to bleed. But let me tell you the truth. Discipline makes consistency meaningful. It gives it backbone. It turns your habits into weapons. It transforms your routine into warfare. Because when you are disciplined, every step you take is intentional. Every action is aligned with purpose. You don't just repeat tasks, you sharpen yourself daily. You don't just show up, you show up stronger than yesterday. And when your consistency flows from discipline, you are no longer moved by tiredness, boredom, or opinion. You train when you're weary, you work when you're under fire. You press forward when everyone else turns back. You stay planted when others scatter. That's power. That's why disciplined consistency is feared. Because it cannot be manipulated. It cannot be discouraged. It cannot be bought or distracted. Many start the race. Few finish. Why? because many are consistent until it gets hard. But the disciplined are consistent especially when it gets hard. That's the difference. When life throws delays, insults, losses, silence, the disciplined remain consistent, because their consistency is not for the world. It's for their calling, for their standard, for the legacy they promised themselves they would build. Don't confuse convenience with conviction. Don't mistake motion for momentum. Just because you are moving doesn't mean you're advancing. And just because you are consistent doesn't mean you are becoming who you're meant to be. Consistency without discipline is shallow. It produces noise, but no depth. It creates activity, but no transformation. It shows up, but it doesn't level up. If you want to rise above the average, if you want to endure storms, if you want to become untouchable, then your consistency must be anchored in discipline, not in hype, not in schedules, not in how many people are watching, but in the fire inside you that refuses to stop until your assignment is fulfilled. Because in the end, you don't become great by what you do once. You don't even become great by what you do often. You become great by what you do relentlessly, with focus, with discipline, with purpose, especially when it's hard. Discipline commands respect from the world, but more importantly, it commands respect from within. When a man lacks discipline, he cannot trust himself. He cannot rely on his own word. He makes promises he never keeps. He builds plans he never finishes. He speaks about potential he never activates. And deep down, that man begins to lose something more dangerous than anything the outside world can take. He loses his self-respect. You see, the moment you start breaking your own word, you stop believing in your own power. Every time you say, "I'll start tomorrow," and you don't. Every time you say, "This time I'll be serious," and fall back again, a piece of you fades. Not just your strength, but your honor. And when you lose your honor with yourself, it doesn't matter how others see you. You can dress it up, post it online, fake it in public, but you will still feel the emptiness that comes from knowing you are living beneath your calling. Discipline restores that honor. It repairs the bond between your actions and your identity. Because when you are disciplined, you stop lying to yourself. You say you will do it, and you do it. You say you'll rise early, and you rise. You say you'll give it all, and you don't quit. And every time you do what you said you would do, you stand taller. Your chest rises. Your voice gains weight. Not because someone validated you, but because you've proven to yourself that you are not a slave to weakness anymore. That's what discipline does. It doesn't just build skill, it builds respect from the inside out. We live in a world where everyone wants to be respected. They chase status. They buy symbols. They beg for attention. But listen, true respect is not given by the crowd. It is earned in the dark, in the places where no one claps. When you wake up early while others sleep. When you train while others party. When you stay focused while others drift. That's when the world begins to notice. Not because you shouted, but because your discipline screamed louder than your words ever could. Discipline turns your life into a message. It speaks without noise. When you walk into a room, people feel it. They may not understand it, but they sense it. The way you carry yourself, the sharpness in your eyes, the firmness in your tone. You don't have to explain yourself. Your habits speak for you. Your consistency speaks for you. Your control speaks for you. And when the world sees a person who governs themselves, they cannot help but respect them, even if they don't agree with them. But it's not just about how the world sees you. It's about how your future will remember you. Discipline creates legacy. Discipline builds men and women who can lead, who can protect, who can endure. If you want your children, your people, your nation to rise, you must be the example, not the echo. You must show them what it looks like to live with restraint, to move with structure, to act with purpose. Discipline is strength under control. It is power that is harnessed, not wasted. It is the lion who chooses when to roar, not the dog who barks at every noise. When you are undisciplined, you react. You are tossed by anger, by lust, by fear, by impulse. But when you are disciplined, you respond. You respond. You pause, you calculate, you strike with precision. That is the mark of a warrior. Not wild energy, but focused power. And understand this, discipline is not chains, it is freedom. Because the man who lacks discipline becomes a slave to his feelings, a slave to his addictions, a slave to every temptation that comes his way. But the disciplined man, he walks in mastery. He eats for strength, not for comfort. He speaks with truth, not for approval. He moves with vision, not for applause. That is real freedom. To no longer be pulled by every emotion, but to live rooted in conviction. So many people are chasing motivation. They wait to feel good before they take action. But discipline doesn't wait for motivation. Discipline builds when motivation dies. That's why it is respected. Because it is rare. Because it is hard. Because it cannot be bought. You must earn it, moment by moment, choice by choice, decision by decision. If you want to walk with dignity, if you want to command your life instead of being commanded by your weakness, if you want to look in the mirror and respect the person staring back, then you must submit to the law of discipline. Because when you govern yourself, no one else can control you. And that is a life worthy of respect. A disciplined life is a life anchored in purpose, not pleasure. In a generation where people are taught to chase what feels good, what's easy, what's convenient, discipline stands as rebellion. It is the quiet defiance that refuses to bow to pleasure, the holy resistance that chooses the long road over the shortcut, the sacrifice over the thrill. Because discipline understands that true greatness is never born in comfort. It is forged in the fire of intentional pain. When you live for pleasure, you are always searching but never satisfied. You run from thing to thing, hoping each one will finally fulfill you. But pleasure is a liar. It promises peace but delivers emptiness. It gives you a moment of relief, then leaves you with regret. It whispers a just once more until that one moment becomes a lifestyle. And that lifestyle becomes your prison. That's how people fall. Not all at once, but gradually, one small compromise, one unchecked appetite, one ignored warning, until their lives are ruled by cravings, not convictions. But when your life is rooted in purpose, you become untouchable. Purpose demands sacrifice. It demands focus. It demands that you deny yourself for something greater. Discipline is what keeps you aligned with that purpose when every other voice around you says, take the easy way. Pleasure will always tempt you to trade your future for a moment. But discipline refuses that exchange. Discipline says, I'm not living for now. I'm living for legacy. You think it's easy to say no to comfort, to say no to indulgence when your body is screaming for rest, for distraction, for escape? It's not easy, but it's necessary because you can't serve both pleasure and purpose. One will always destroy the other. And the dangerous thing about pleasure is it disguises itself as peace. It comes gently. It looks innocent. But if you keep feeding it, it will consume everything. It will rob you of time, clarity, and strength. And worst of all, it will rob you of your calling. Discipline is painful, but that pain is clean. It is controlled. It breaks you so it can build you. But the pain of pleasure, that's different. It comes with guilt, with coke and focus and stolen energy. That's why people feel more empty the more they chase comfort. Because your soul wasn't designed to be entertained. It was designed to be engaged in something eternal. Purpose gives pain a reason. Discipline turns that pain into progress. Every early morning, every late night, every sacrifice, every temptation you resisted. It is building something. It may not feel like it at first. You may not see the results right away. But stay consistent. Because what you're building is invisible before it becomes undeniable. That's what people don't understand. They want to see fruit without planting roots. But discipline digs deep. It works when no one is watching. And when the fruit finally shows, it is not temporary, it is lasting. There will always be people who laugh at you for choosing purpose. They'll say you're too serious, too strict, too focused. Let them laugh. Because while they're chasing their next distraction, you're building your future. While they're wasting hours on things that fade, you're investing in things that endure. Let them spend their lives feeding their urges. You're training yours to obey your mission. That's what separates leaders from followers. Leaders live by vision, not by urges. They know what they're called to do and they structure their lives to fulfill it. They don't chase feelings, they lead them. That's what discipline does. It brings your body under submission. It silences the voice that says, you give up. It trains your mind to see past the moment and look to the reward. Because make no mistake, there is a reward. Maybe not today, maybe not even this year. But if you stay disciplined, if you keep showing up, if you keep choosing purpose over pleasure, your time will come. And when it comes, no one will be able to deny the strength you've built, the respect you've earned, the destiny you've walked into. Not because you were the loudest, not because you were the most talented, but because you were the most disciplined. The truth is, pleasure will always knock. It will always offer something easier. But you must remember, every time you choose discipline, you're not just resisting pleasure. You're honoring your purpose. You're protecting your future. You're declaring that your life means more than comfort. So no, this journey isn't easy. It wasn't meant to be, but it is worth it. Because the ones who choose purpose over pleasure, the ones who master themselves, those are the ones who build lives that can never be shaken.